Welcome. Scott here. Here is a quick boss guide for the upcoming Lufania Plus event, Dimensions End Transcendence Tier 10. Before I proceed further, here is a quick overview on how Transcendence works. For any Transcendence stages, your party will get boosted stats if you bring a burst unit for the fight. To access Dimensions End Transcendence, you need to clear up to Tier 5 of Dimensions End Entropy. There are 3 stages that you need to clear for the fight. There are 2 crucibles that you need to clear first before you can access the main gate. The main gate will require you to bring only the characters that you have used for the crucibles. You can't use any of the characters locked to the tier for other tiers unless you unlock them. Firstly, let's break down the requirements of the crucibles. All Lufania orbs are fatal and they are mechanics that you should watch out for this Transcendence fight. Do take note that Lufania auras for crucibles are the standard versions and they are not the restrictive ones that you face in the plus versions. For the left crucible or crucible 1, you will be fighting 2 Ragegator. They have 20 million HP each. The turn requirements are 60 and you need to bring a yellow crystal unit. The orb requires you to grant Brave to all non-KO allies in one action. For the right crucible or crucible 2, you will be fighting 2 Astaroth. They have 20 million HP each. The turn requirement is also 60 and you need to bring a blue crystal unit. The orb requires you to inflict 2 or more debuffs in one turn. Upon clearing both crucibles, you will be able to access the main reckoning stage or the middle gate. You will be fighting a new enemy type, the Disaster Machine. The fight is a Shinryu level fight. I will discuss more on the force mechanics when I am discussing about the fight itself. The Disaster Machine has 110 million HP and it is immune to any debuffs that prevent action like paralysis or confusion. Throughout the fight, it will be accompanied by sweepers that has 5 million HP each. The turn requirement for the fight is 75 and the HP requirements is 25,000. Before I continue further, here is a small disclaimer clause for the video. The guide is written based on the time that the event was released for the Japanese version. Please do note that it is possible that the boss fight mechanics might differ when the actual event is released in global. Let's cover on the mechanics of the first crucible. You need to bring a yellow crystal unit for this stage and units that can grant Brave in an ability to non-KO allies. There is a wide cast of units that can fulfill the conditions. This excludes Brave gains that occur during counters or enemy turns. Examples of units that can reliably uptick the orb and are yellow crystal are Sherlotta, Ramza, Rude, Ishtala and Bash. Leo, Pernello, Kryl, Ursula, Yuna, and Waka are other options that you can consider as well. Firstly, let's cover the orb triggers. At the start of the fight, the orb will begin at the count of 8. It is a non-cancelable orb. The Lufania countdown ability is fatal. The orb will downtick by 1 per party action. You will uptick the orb as long as you grant Brave to a non-KO ally. Now, I will briefly go through the Ragegator mechanics. They will gain aura boosts at the start of the fight and 49% HP threshold. The boss has 2 modes, normal and runaway. While in normal mode, they will usually do their basic attacks which I have listed on the table on the right. Beware when you see the message moving to devour. It means the boss will use a guaranteed break attack on the following turn where it will gain Brave equivalent to 500% of its initial Brave. They will enter into runaway mode at the 79%, 49%, and 29% HP threshold which is indicated by the marks on their HP bar. When runaway mode is activated, they emit a red aura where they will gain massive Brave, drains your party Brave and lower your party initial Brave by 80%. While the mode is activated, they will use Tremor Plus which is guaranteed hit, AoE Brave plus HP attack executed twice. It will also delay all targets by 3 turns. This is very dangerous even for units with Last Stand passive. To negate this, you can either freeze their Brave gains by use a freeze debuff call or the Shiva summon or use damage mitigation calls like Reno, Ragin, or Warrior of Light. Alternatively, you can use turn disable debuffs like paralysis or confusion to prevent them from acting. A fully geared Sherlotta can solo this tier on her own with Quistis LDCA. Now, let's cover the second Crucible. For this Crucible, you need to bring a blue crystal unit. You will be fighting 2 Astaroth. Let's talk about the orb first. The orb will appear at the start of the fight. The Lufania countdown ability is fatal. The orb will downtick by 1 per party action. You can uptick the orb by inflict 2 or more debuffs in 1 turn. Like the previous fight, there are a lot of units that can fulfill the condition. Examples of units that can fulfill it and are blue crystal unit are Exdeath, Titus, Ursula, Waka, Ferris, Kryl and Pain. The boss has some mechanics that could counter against brave hits. Examples of units that don't have brave hits in their attacks are Exdeath, Purim, Selfie and Sherlotta. The bosses will gain aura boost across 3 HP thresholds, start of the fight, 79% and 49%. Do watch out for Piercing Spear Plus, which is a single brave plus HP attack that is triggered twice. At the 79% and 49%, one of the bosses will get into break counter stance where they will emit a yellow aura. Once the first Astaroth, usually boss A, exit from the stance after its turn, the aura will switch to boss B and they will alternate getting into the stance between each other. If you break them while they are in the stance, they will counter with Counter Light of Sanctions, which is a guaranteed hit single target brave plus HP attack that dispels the target's buffs, inflicts curse and initial brave debuff and delay the countered unit's turn by 2. The boss will also get healed by 5% of the damage dealt. To get the boss out of the counter stance, you need to give it a turn or break in while in summon phase or burst phase. Triggering a break while in summon or burst phase won't trigger counter sanctions of light. Use this to your advantage. If you killed one of the Astaroth early, the surviving one will enrage, so try to target to finish both of them at the same time. Titus can solo this tier with a Chocobo summon and Rain's LDCA. However, do watch out for his jet shot trigger and make sure it trigger when the boss is not in the counter mode. With the 2 Crucibles out of the way, let's focus on the main Reckoning stage. You will be restricted to use 6 of the units that you used for the earlier Crucible stages. Here is a quick overview of the fight. You will be fighting the Disaster Machine boss, which has 110 million HP. This is one of the toughest Transcendence tier fights to date. The boss can summon 2 sweepers which has 5 million HP each to support it in the fight. Don't bother to focus on eliminating the sweepers as they will be resummoned once they are destroyed. The boss is immune to any debuffs that prevent action. On the screen, you can see a timeline that illustrates the thresholds that you need to watch out for. I will be covering them in the later slides. On the right side of the slide, you can see the key attacks that you need to watch out for. 1. Heavy Vapor is an AoE Brave plus HP attack that inflicts a framed poison debuff for 3 turns and grants the boss Brave damage up plus 50% buff for 3 turns as well. 2. Power Beam is a guaranteed hit, single Brave attack with 100% critical chance. 3. Secondary Rail Cannon is a single target Brave plus HP attack which grants the boss 50% framed attack buff for 3 turns. From 100% to 60% of the boss HP, the boss has an aura stack mechanic that scales off the number of debuffs that you inflicted on the boss. The lesser debuffs on the boss, the stronger the aura effects will be. Thus, it is important to load framed debuffs on the boss. The recent BT plus units like Exdeath, Gabranthe, Titus, and Chaos can inflict multiple framed debuffs. You can load more debuffs by using calls like Ferris and Amidadalion. The auras are similar to the one that we have faced in Transcendence Tier 6. If you inflict less than a total of 7 debuffs, the boss will warp its turn forward whenever your party member act. Once the aura has been deactivated, the boss will instruct the sweeper to do an advanced HP attacks at 2 HP thresholds, 59% and 39%. Upon triggering it, you will see a prompt that says Order Sweeper to attack. It is important to ensure both sweepers' HP are below 50%, otherwise they will use double machine gun plus which will KO a random target. If you trigger it while the sweeper HP is below 50%, they will use double machine gun plus, which is a guaranteed hit, single target brave plus HP attack and heals the sweeper HP back to 100%. At the 39% HP threshold, the boss will enter into repair mode where it will gain 1% HP Regen aura and apply 10% HP poison aura field. As the boss has 110 million HP, 1% will equate to 1.1 million. Thus, it has effectively become a damage race to kill the boss. The auras, HP Regen and HP poison, will remain active as long as your party takes a turn, even while in the unit's burst phase or summon mode. To overcome this mechanics, most of the players use a FR-powered burst phase to push the boss HP down to oblivion. To abuse FR mechanics, you can bring a force gauge charger like Pernello, Ignis, Kryl, Braska, or Sherlotta. As this is a very tricky and tough fight, here are some special setup tips that I could offer. As the boss is immune to debuffs that prevent action, you can still bring Camlenaut and abuse his FR for the fight. The key lies in Waka's LD debuff. You need to get his status reels trigger so you can fulfill Camlenaut FR condition. To abuse the FR, you still need to fulfill the other conditions of Ice Enchant and Launch. However, you probably need to bring a heavy debuffer like Chaos or Gabrant for the third member of the team comp so that you can ensure you meet the 7 debuff conditions. You can also slotting debuffing spheres into E slots so you can meet the quota. For example, you can consider slotting Camlenaut with a Titus RF sphere. Since filling the boss buff slot with debuffs will help greatly in negating the auras, you can make use of Ferris Call to fill up 5 debuff slots with her call. However, you can make it 6 frame debuff by equipping Ferris with a Setzer RF sphere. Generally, bringing units who can inflict debuffs at the start of the wave will help a lot in the fight greatly. Let's start off the mechanics proper. We will begin with the aura mechanic that the boss has activate from 100% to 60% HP threshold. During this HP threshold, the boss will gain stats boost depending on the number of debuffs that you have placed on it. The lesser debuffs that the boss has, the stronger aura boost that the boss will gain. If the boss has 7 or less debuffs, it will gain aura that boost its attack, defense, and speed by 50%. If the boss has 6 or less debuffs, it will warp its turn forward after your unit act. If the boss has 4 or less debuffs, the boss will gain 50% boost to its HP damage and brave damage. If the boss has less than 2 debuffs, the boss will gain an aura boost of HP and brave damage resistance of 200%. You can see the table on the screen that summarize the effects. In short, it is important to upkeep the debuffs as long as possible until the 59% HP threshold. The boss can gain framed buffs from some of its attack, thus is important to limit its turns as well. Once you reach 59% HP threshold, the aura mechanic will be deactivated and the boss will order to sweeper to attack. Make sure that sweeper HP is below 50% or one of the units will get KO by their double machine gun plus attack. As this is a Shinryu fight, the boss will also gain stats boost too as the force gauge build up. The charging speed will increase faster as the boss HP deplete. When the force gauge is 20% and above, the boss will gain aura boost that raises its defense, brave damage up and brave damage resistance by 20%. When the force gauge is 40% and above, the boss will gain aura boost that raises its defense, brave damage up and brave damage resistance by 40%. When the force gauge is maxed, it will unleash its force ability, Amplified Wave Cannon, and activate its force time by 5. Its force ability, Amplified Wave Cannon, will increase the boss brave by 100% of its initial brave, sets your party brave to 0 and unleash an AoE HP attack. When the force time is activated, you will see a red hue emitting from its force gauge. The boss will gain the following 2 enhancements. It will activate 10% HP poison field and any brave damage received by the boss will be reduced by 100%. To freeze the force time, you need to use a non-elemental magic force ability which is Terra, Sherlotta, and in the coming days, Cloud of Darkness. Now let's focus on the minions that are accompanying the boss. The sweeper has 5 million HP each and they will be resummoned whenever they are killed. They will usually use their standard attacks. Keep their HP and brave low and it shouldn't be a problem for you. Do keep their HP below 50% when you are trigger the following HP threshold for the main boss, 59% and 39%. At these thresholds, they will unleash a plus variant of double machine gun. The type of attack will depend on the current HP of the sweeper when the threshold is triggered. Keep their HP below 50%. Make sure you prepare some damage mitigation to handle the double machine gun plus, which is a guaranteed hit, single target brave plus HP attack. The sweeper will heal back to its max HP after the attack. If you trigger the HP threshold while in summon or burst phase, the attack will be triggered immediately once you exited from the phase. Like other Shinryu fights, the boss will gain aura boost when its HP is depleted. At the start of the fight, it will gain 80% brave gain and brave damage resistance, raises its brave damage cap by 50% and boost its defense by 50%. At the 79% HP threshold, it will further increase the max brave cap, damage cap, and defense stats boost to 100%. When the boss HP drops to 39%, it will enter into the repairing phase where it will gain a 1.1 million HP regen, and applies 10% HP poison to the field. This effect will last until end of the fight. The HP regen will trigger even on your summon or burst phase and whenever the boss acts. However, the regen doesn't trigger when the sweeper minions act. It is important to plan your FR phase and burst phase to handle this portion of the fight. So, technically it is a damage race to finish the fight. Finally, we have reached the last slide of the guide. Overall, this fight isn't a cakewalk compared to the previous Transcendence tiers. This is probably the first tier where you may find both Ultima weapon and FR weapon a necessity to complete the fight depending on your team comp. After all, we are talking about a boss with 110 million HP. Recommended FR units that you can consider for the fight are Sherlotta, Titus, Ursula, Braska, Terra and Cloud of Darkness. Force charger units like Pernello, Ignis, and Kryle will help a lot in building up your force gauge so you can make use of your own force time to overpower the boss healing mechanics that starts from 39%. As it is a damage race, big time damage nuker units like Titus, Terra, Sherlotta, and Machina are great. Chaos and Gabarinth are great for the tier with debuffs. Gabarinth also offers strong damage mitigation auras if you have his BT. Aphmau is also great for this fight for her turn manipulation ability. To ensure that you have enough firepower to finish the boss, you can make use of follow-up units or launches to enhance your damage output. Follow-up units like Cain, Freya, Cisnei, Cloud of Darkness and Noctis are very useful here. Selfie LD debuff can set the boss launch mode all day. You can also make use of Rain's LDCA to launch with your burst unit. To close up on the guide, let's discuss a bit on the featured FR unit. Sherlotta is a premium FR gauge charger with her S1 and EX. She can spam multiple HP attack that scales off your ally's current brave with her S2. Her LD hits hard and allow her to gain access to her powerful chuck staff. Sherlotta FR is actually one of the best for abusing powerful modified HP attacks. Her force time has two conditions. Using a modified HP or brave attack will increase the FR gauge by 40%. Examples of units that can abuse the FR are Sherlotta herself, Ursula, Machina and Papalimmo. Rinoa is a future FR-BT unit will also benefit greatly from this FR as well. Sherlotta can also uptick the force charger with 20% by recover allies brave. She can be as used for supercharger with her S1 and EX. Using her S1 or EX will allow you to supercharge force gauge by 70%. With a Paladin Cecil and Lily set RF sphere, Sherlotta can uptick her force time by 60% as the spheres will grant Brave to the party on break with Lotta at full HP or inflict a debuff respectively. To optimize Sherlotta BT phase, store up her Chuck Staff uses with 2 LD uses. Each LD uses will grant her 3 Chuck Staff. Activate her force time, supercharge her FR for 1 or 2 turns. At turn 7 of her force time, have her enter into her BT phase spamming Chuck Staff and use her FR for the last turn before her burst finisher. With this, I have come to the end of the guide. Hopefully, this will help you. If you like the video, please give it a like. If you are looking forward to future content like this, please subscribe to my channel. Good luck for the fight tomorrow and bye.